What are these?
These aren't going to be in the,
What are
these
these?
aren't going to be in the shot.
So I said, no gray sweatpants, and you said, bet I'll show up in house shoes. I'll show up in slippers.
Welcome to Downshift, everyone. My name is Paulo.
And my name is Matt, and we have spent the last week with the Range Rover Sport Autobiography P550e, which means it's their plug-in hybrid, and it's got some pretty stiff competition, so I'm going to walk you through the best and the rest.
Yes, I'm going to get behind the wheel and talk about some of our standouts for the week.
Let's get into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about on the con side of the video is really my biggest annoyance during my week with the Range Rover here. And I've titled this section Buttons, and there's two parts to this. Now, for 2025, they've cleaned up the cabin design a bit, but they've cleaned it up in the same way that like you're trying to vacuum like around something and then not suck up like something next to it, but then you accidentally end up sucking up the thing you're not trying to suck up. That's what happened with the buttons in the cabin here. They accidentally sucked them all up in the vacuum because there's no buttons here anymore. There's a button for your start stop, there's a button for your park gear, and there's two buttons for your glove box over there. And that's basically it. I mean, even steering wheel controls, which can hardly be classified as buttons, there isn't even really there's not a volume knob over here. There's a tiny little wheel here, which we'll get to in a second. But this is just irritating when you consider that the screen is pretty good, but not perfect. And I say pretty good fairly generously. Now, with the haptic feedback on, you have to like physically assault the screen to get it to register. You turn the haptic feedback off, and then you don't have to press it so hard, but then it's also kind of laggy, so you don't really know if it's registered or not. Processing just a little bit slow, and it ends up being kind of frustrating. It would just be better if you had buttons or controls that are here on your center console to control things like your climate controls or your heated and cooled seat. This is stuff that we complain about in every video, and Range Rover's not the only ones doing this. Everyone's putting more stuff into the screen, but it's just a little frustrating because the screen can be laggy sometimes. Now, part two for the buttons tirade. The buttons and switches that are in here are weirdly cheap. The seat adjustment buttons that are on the door here, like they would be in a Mercedes, are like plasticky. They look good, but they're like kind of plasticky and a little bit chintzy. The mirror controls, kind of the same thing. And the steering wheel buttons, again, not really classified as buttons, but they do that thing where they like change depending on what thing you're adjusting and at what time. And they have a little bit of clickiness to them, but it doesn't feel so like expensive, like a metal button on like maybe a BMW X7 steering wheel might, or something like that, you know what I mean? But the worst offender of all is for volume. There is no knob over here. There's a volume button that you push, and then you push another time for each individual tick of volume, or you can do up to 4 at a time, or you can use this little wheel on your steering wheel. And it is incredibly cheap feeling, and it feels looser than the first cigarette you ever rolled in college. And when it comes to the trunk, it's not bad, it's just not the best either. It's of course powered, but there's no separate button for close and lock back here. But the thing that strikes me is that it does have a really high load floor, but you look over to the right-hand side of the tailgate and you have a button to control the air suspension, so you can squat this thing to make it easier to load things in and out. The space itself with the rear seats up is 32 cubic feet of space. That's slightly bigger than a Porsche Cayenne and slightly smaller than a BMW X5. You have hangers, lights, etc. And again, you have buttons to control the air suspension to make it easier to load things in and out. You also, right next to that, have power folding rear seats. And this is where things kind of fall off the rails a little bit. With the seats down, it's 50 cubic feet, which is real small for the segment. But there's a good reason for that, because a lot of that space that would go to the trunk is taken over by the rear cabin area. So for rear passengers, they've been prioritized over cargo. And as a passenger, I kind of appreciate that. And this point isn't going to surprise anybody, but yeah, we're going to have to talk about price/value on the con side of the Range Rover video. Now, our trim here starts at $118,000, and as tested, we're testing just under $129,000, which is big money. It's way more than where an X5 or a GLE starts, and it's a bit more than where the Cayenne starts. But if you start optioning out that Porsche Cayenne, you could get to even more money than this. And the price pill is a pretty big one to swallow, but the truth is Range Rover buyers, or I should say maybe leasers, aren't generally as pressed for cash or value oriented as maybe some other buyers. But there's a lot that I really love about this thing, so It's bringing stuff that maybe the X5, GLE, and the Cayenne aren't, and we'll get into that later in the video. And like with anything, there's just a handful of little nitpicks. Like for one, you can only get the Stealth package with the Carpathian gray paint, which is what we have here, and it looks fantastic, so it's not really a nitpick so much, because I do think I would end up with a spec pretty similar to what we have here. But there's other things going on, like the infotainment screen in the center gets real hot to the touch. If I find myself like kind of pinching it like this to operate the corner buttons, it feels a little hot to the touch, more warm than I think would be comfortable. And then there's things like the wing mirrors and the door handles, which are motorized and kind of fold in and go flush with the body when the car locks, and then unfold when it unlocks, and they just have a bit of a creaky sound where it sounds like the motors maybe are on the precipice of breaking. And then the door here, not all the time, but when it gets cold, it has a little bit of a creaky, crunchy sound. And it's just little tiny things like that that take away from maybe the mystique or the prestige of a Range Rover name, but that's really it, and those are nitpicks, so there's a lot to love about this Range Rover Sport. Let's talk about that. The best thing about this Range Rover Sport, P550e autobiography, whatever, is the ride. It is so unbelievably supple behind the wheel. It rides like a cloud, like Rolls-Royce level refinement and sophistication and wump. The cabin is so isolated and it masks speed so thoroughly because it's so refined. In EV mode, when you have this thing charged up, it is totally seamless. But even with the engine on, it's incredibly smooth because the hybrid system is kind of using electric power to feed in things like gear changes or pulling away from a stop or things like that. And it is just effortless. The air suspension is awesome. It soaks up everything. You've got the 48-volt sway bars. They connect and disconnect to make this thing ride and soak up everything, but also stay fairly neutral in a corner. You've got 7.3 degrees of rear steer. We'll talk about this more later. The air suspension is awesome here. The seats are unbelievably comfortable. The main rival to this thing, like the Cayennes, the GLEs, the X5s, they're just not quite in the same league as this Range Rover. This is on another tier of luxury, which is insane to say because this is still the hardcore off-roader that its legacy is built on, and yet it's possibly the most quiet, refined, and luxurious SUV I've ever had the pleasure of floating down the road in. And we've been talking a lot about Porsche Cayennes, BMW X5s, Mercedes GLEs, and the like, and all of those are very nice luxury SUVs, but none of them even come close to the off-road prowess that's brought in the Range Rover. In addition to all the frills and amenities and luxuries that we've talked about so far, you also have the off-road chops of things like a 2-speed transfer case for your low-range gearbox. You have a sonar system in here with wade sensing, and you have a live vehicle dimension screen so you can keep track of how deep the water is that you're in, so you know not to go over a certain amount, and you can actively see your approach, breakover, and departure angles. You've got air suspension to maximize all those angles and your ground clearance. You've got 360 and trail cameras to keep an eye on everything around your $130,000 Range Rover, and you might want to. And you've got terrain response too with an auto setting, so if you are a little intimidated by whatever terrain you're on, you just throw it in auto and you let the big brains over at Range Rover and Land Rover suss out everything that the car needs to do to get you through wherever you're going. And for obvious reasons, we didn't take the $130,000 Range Rover to Road America's off-road course because I'm not going to be the one that tells Range Rover they need a new front lip. Another one of my favorite things about this Range Rover is the cabin experience. Now, we'll start with the seats. Not only do they look great, not only are they upholstered in the softest, most supple leather that I've ever experienced in a car, they're 22-way adjustable. You've got 3-level heated, 3-level cooled, a million different types of massage. You've got a heated steering wheel here. It's white, which is one of my favorites. It's not the most practical choice for real living and people that wear black denim, but still, it looks fantastic. It's uber comfortable. And the seating adjustment is on the door here, like it would be in a Benz, so you don't have to disgrace yourself with reaching down toward the floor where all the mud and yuck of the world is. But then when we actually talk about the cabin design as a whole, everything feels really high-end, except for the knobs, buttons, and switches. But all of the rest of it is fantastically exquisite. The leathers, again, I'm gonna go on about the leathers, they're fabulous. The textiles that are on the door, in the door card, some of my favorite things, we've talked about it on the podcast before, love the Scandinavian influence of like a textile in a cabin to make it feel a little bit more upscale. You've got this open pore wood here on your door card and here to cover up your water bottles. And it's just fabulous to look at. The white with the black, the domino spec, the fact that there's no physical buttons. We've talked about the con side of that, but the pro side of it is that it looks beautiful in here. And you've got this like dark Vader chrome throughout the cabin on your doors that catches and reflects the ambient light. So it amplifies the effect that the ambient light has without needing to run more LEDs all around the cabin. I like to have mine on purple, but when I turn the car off, it all goes white, like a soft kind of warm white. So it's not like, it doesn't feel like a doctor's office. It feels like, okay, you've arrived. It's just good. And there's several different flavors you can get your Range Rover Sport in, but I do like the P550 plug-in hybrid that we have here. What we have here is the 3-liter inline-6 plug-in hybrid. It's an Ingenium engine and it's turbocharged and E-supercharged to make 543 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. 141 horsepower of that is coming from an E-motor, which is fed from a 31.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is good for 53 miles of EV range according to the EPA, and that's bang on what we found in our real-world Lakeshore Loop testing. It's good for 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, and when you run out of battery, it does get a little bit thirsty and is rated for about 21 mpg gas only. But something like a turbocharged and E-supercharged engine with a plug-in hybrid component sounds like a pretty complex powertrain from a brand maybe not synonymous with reliability. So if you want something a little bit more simple, you can go for something like the BMW engine. They've got a V8 and they're kind of low output V8, but if you go for the SV version of the Range Rover Sport, that's basically an X5M competition powertrain and drivetrain under the skin, and that would be something. But here I do really like the plug-in hybrid. It charges up in about 4.5 hours on my level 2 at home, and it does get 50 to 55 miles of range, depending on how much highway you're doing. So there's a lot to love here under the hood of the Range Rover Sport P550e. And as we get to the styling, we already knew this was going to be on the pro side of the video. Overall, the design language is uber minimal, though it still looks like a Range Rover. You have sleeker headlights than ever before, including the runners, and you have an embellished front bumper with kind of the chrome or bronze treatment. Around the side, you've got 21-inch wheels that are inlaid with carbon fiber, maybe a bit too much for my take, but at least they're maybe a talking point. And you have a front fender detail with some of that bronze or gold accenting that we've talked about, and we have a two-tone black roof and A-pillar. But the interesting thing is if you look close, the window is flush with the door. There's no rubber gasket down at the bottom. Same thing with the flush door handles, is just retract into the body for maximum aerodynamics. If I were to describe the styling of this thing in a word, it would be flush or maybe minimal, but either way it looks fantastic and it looks like a Range Rover, the most modern and elegant and expensive version yet. And yet somehow, despite all of the minimalism going on here and just the kind of almost incognito stealth aspect of it, it still seems to have more presence or joie de vivre than a GLE or a Cayenne or an X5, and that's kind of just the Range Rover thing. And I know we talked about like the uber luxury and the comfort earlier, but I want to talk about the sport part of Range Rover Sport a little bit more. And it is, well, it's sporty. The truth is you've got the straight 6, which is really punchy and yet still very smooth. You've got an 8-speed transmission, which is pretty good. It's not perfect, it's not super sharp like a dual clutch, but this isn't supposed to be a type of thing that has a dual clutch. But it's the electric torque and the power mapping that really impresses when it's feeding in to make this thing feel like I have power anywhere and at any speed and at any time. It sounds pretty good when it starts to growl and rasp. It handles shockingly well for what it is. We have the air ride and the air suspension with the 48-volt sway bars that are disconnecting and reconnecting to swallow up bumps, but also to keep things nice and kind of composed in a corner. You've got Brembo brakes peeking out from underneath your carbon inserted wheels, which is kind of funny. But you do have an LSD out back with 7.3 degrees of rear steer. You've got torque vectoring by brake, but still, it doesn't handle quite like a Cayenne, but it's not far off. And it manages to do all of this while still bringing the off-road credibility that the Range Rover is known for, something that the X5s, the Cayennes, the GLEs, they can't touch. And it's not like just the front seats or just the driving experience is luxurious. It translates even to the back seats here. I've got power recline here for my back seats. I've got 3-level heated, 3-level cooled. I've got vents back here. I've got chargers back here, a huge panoramic roof. The leather is fantastic. It's incredibly supple. You've got window shades here with the same incredible leathers and fabric textile and the Vader chrome on your door card. All of the same really exquisite and opulent details from the front of the cabin continue back here to make it feel really special, comfortable, and luxurious, especially for 6-footers. I mean, look at this. And I do want to touch on the tech a little bit. I have it on the pro side of the video, but it's a little bit more of a mixed bag. But you can get everything. It's not always executed to perfection, but you can get everything that you could possibly want. You've got a head-up display, gives me loads of information. I have a fully digital instrument cluster that looks and feels modern, gives me everything I would want to see. And then you've got this floating center screen. It's kind of curved or domed away from me, and it kind of floats above the dashboard, which just makes it feel a little bit more like an event to interact with it. Now, when you do interact with it, it's again a mixed bag. The UX is a little bit clunky, but you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You get 360 cameras that look great and work really well, even with the off-road settings, so your trail cams, they work really, really well. You've got a digital rear view mirror, so I can see like 4K feed of what's behind me in case I've got stuff loaded up in the back and I can't see past it. You've got Alexa built in. The only thing that I'm not really so much of a fan of is, well, the lane keep assist kind of ping-pongs a little bit inside your lane, and yeah, the screen is a little bit laggy at times, but other than that, it's got all the tech you could need. Hey guys, real quick, Matt here. Just wanted to say I hope you've been enjoying the video. If you have, would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does go a long way in helping us get access to cars sooner and get access to manufacturer engineers so we can get more information on the cars and get you more information so you can make better decisions. So would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe, like, comment, the whole YouTube thing. But with that, let's get back to the video.
The experience, the feeling that you get, the ride comfort, or do you value some of the convenience features? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
and
it's
reliability.
Like, do you want the prestige and the luxury, or do you want a car that works better as a car?
Exactly.
More or less.
I think we finally got it.
I think we did it.
No,
not even in. See, but this feels hot again. Sounds like a straight 6. It sounds decent. I mean, not like amazing. It sounds muted because it's what? Turbocharged and supercharged and
plug-in hybrid
with a big ass battery, plug-in.
Yes.
Now I do like some of this.
A recipe for excellence.
Yes, I do like the over 50 miles of like real world range we got on the test. Like that's amazing.
Yes.
Like most of the time you can probably drive this thing in just EV mode, and then it is uber smooth and uber luxe, and the engine. I don't know. I've got a thing in my head about like historically. The least reliable brand bringing you a supercharged and turbocharged and plug-in hybrid powertrain.
Yeah, I think they did it for the lulz and the trolls.
It's going to make me sweat a little bit. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that too much. Let's hear about your standouts.
Yeah, so it was a good week. I think looking at the exterior, they spent a lot of time and detail on how it looks and how it's sculpted. Yeah. And I think it has a really unique and sophisticated exterior look. I like how they kind of blended in the bumpers with the rest of the body and the hood and like the windows with the doors. Like those things are really cool to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they did a great job like finessing a modern style of a Range Rover that still looks like a Range Rover, but into like an incredibly minimal and modern look. And it looks great.
Yeah, and I think
except for the 23-inch carbon blades. I'm not with the carbon wheels.
Right, I'm not either.
It's a bit too much.
I will touch on those in a second.
Okay,
but then I think that same design language and minimalism carries on in the interior. And I think without actually experiencing it, it looks very nice and luxurious. Yes. And it makes you feel special behind the wheel. As
a sculpture, it is stunning.
Exactly. And the leathers are phenomenal. You said it's probably your favorite leather that you've ever been in a vehicle.
Yeah, the seat, probably the most comfortable luxury seat I've ever been in. The leather, like just the leather piece right here between your legs is amazing.
Yeah.
Heated, cooled massage.
I agree. I think it's top 3, which kind of goes into like the driving experience is probably one of the best out of an SUV that I've ever driven. The rear steer, the air suspension, how comfortable the seats are, the noise isolation, the air purifying system that you have. I mean, you get some awesome luxury features
Rich
here.
people just must be breathing the purest air, because this is what Mercedes is obsessed with.
Yeah.
BMW cares about. Range Rover's got it.
No, they really must be. But
this is what they care about, man.
Again, I can't stress enough how great the ride actually is, and how much the rear steer helps make this thing feel a lot smaller and nimble than it actually would appear to be on the exterior. So
yeah,
props.
If there's one thing that you take away from this video, it's the ride and just like the simplicity and luxury and waft and elegance that you get from the drive and the riding experience here. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like easily probably the most luxurious SUV that we've ever been in.
Yes.
It's just, the ride is incredible, especially when it's in EV mode and there's no like transition between gas and electric. It's just electric and it's just smooth and effortless and bang on.
So then I think, flipping the script, some of the concerns or question marks I had on this car, and one of them is just like conceptual, but 130K.
It's big money.
And they spent a lot of time and effort and detail around some of the off-road capabilities that you get here.
Yes.
So
because it's a Range Rover.
Exactly, which there's the history and the pedigree.
You gotta have it.
You have like a locking center diff, a locking rear diff.
Yep. Air suspension, trail cam,
air suspension, exactly, all these things. You could wade through water.
Yeah, the wade sensing.
Yep. But you lack some of the more convenience features, like...
That's the highway.
You lack some of the more convenience features, like the lane keep assist. It has one, but it's not very good.
It's not good.
It is... It's not good at all.
The Hyundai system is better. The Toyota system is better. Yeah.
My $30,000 Prius has a way better safety suite and driver assist suite than this has by miles. If you turn the driver assist safety suite on in here on high, it'll beep every 20 seconds, and you have absolutely no idea why it's doing that.
Yes. Everyone has their strengths, tech and safety, not the Range Rover's strength.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree. And then I think just the last thing I'll say as kind of a ding is, although I can really appreciate the design of the minimalism in here, I think the usability of it is really lackluster for me. I wish there was more physical buttons like they previously had. The UI UX is hard to navigate and get what you want in a timely fashion. I'm sure you would get used to it, but I'd still need to ding it because it's just not as intuitive or as quick or as fast as I want it to be. Yeah,
I mean, it's very different how the screen interacts with you, whether or not you have haptic feedback turned on with the screen. Like when you don't have it on, the screen is also like, it's bad either way, but like it's bad in different ways, whether or not you have haptics on. Because when you have haptics on, you really gotta like attack the screen. And then you get that click, but then it's hard to like drag and stuff. But if you turn the haptics off, then it's a little bit easier to drag, but sometimes it doesn't register, sometimes it lags, and then you're 3 screens over. It's
also interesting that the haptic feedback only works with the
native UI?
The software, of Land Rover. If you're in Apple CarPlay, it doesn't do that. Yeah. So then it's kind of confusing, and it throws you off a little bit.
Yeah, it's...
And then last thing I'll say, it's like, all these off-roading capabilities, but then you put 23 carbon wheels on here. So it's just like, in two minds, it seems like.
It's the world's ugliest ID Buzz. Why would you get an all-silver one?
I know, that is
That green is sick. The yellow is sick. Sorry, go ahead. So yes, it's very split in its personality because it's a Range Rover, so it has to have the off-road capability, but it's the Sport, so it's not really the off-road one, but it still says Range Rover on it, so it has to have some of that. So it's like at odds with itself.
Yeah.
And it's very at odds with the fact that you have 23-inch carbon inserted wheel. I don't know why it's like stuck out to me, but like...
I know.
I've never seen it before. I've never seen carbon fiber in a wheel that wasn't all carbon fiber before. So it's interesting.
I actually don't hate them, but I think the 22 would give you an even better ride than we're getting here.
I would get a more conventional looking wheel personally. But hey, if you're like one of those carbon people that loves carbon, which there's a lot of you out there, you might like it.
Yeah.
A couple of the thoughts that I've been wrestling with this week. Were you done with all your stuff?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. So just a couple of thoughts that I was wrestling with, and we'll talk about this together because this is our second take, and we didn't really have a back and forth the first take.
The first one was dark.
It was dark. It got weird. We went down some strange roads, saw some strange people. But anyway, this is the bright and sunny side of the video.
Yes.
So I've been struggling with, because you showed it to your in-laws when they were over. I showed it to some other like ex-coworkers, and everyone kind of came out of this being like, yeah, it's real nice, but it's 130 grand. It's way more than I would pay.
Yeah.
And like I've struggled with that because obviously the thing that comes to mind is like, oh, value. And that's a lot of what we do here on Downshift. We talk about the objectivity of like, does it have a bigger trunk? Does it have a smaller trunk? Does it have more speed or less speed? Better fuel economy, less fuel economy? And so like the Range Rover's never been a value play. It's never been like the best, most reliable, most optimized package for the money. It's never what it's been. It's never what it's going to be. If you want that, you buy an X5. If you want that a little bit, but you want something a little bit better, you get a Cayenne. This is purely, I think, like, I want a Range Rover because it's special and I've always wanted a Range Rover kind of thing. And like, the pros to this car are very, very strong, and the cons are also very strong. So it's like peaks and valleys a little bit. Like the interior, amazing in here, but the user experience of the tech, not amazing. The ride, really, really freaking good. The reliability, maybe not as good.
Yeah.
Like there's two sides of the coin here. So I think what it really comes down to is like, what's important to you in your car? Because if it's just getting in something that is like the nicest leathers and the most luxurious ride, and you feel special in it, this is going to be great. But like, if a bad lane keep is going to piss you off, this is not for you. And if, having to go to the service to get your car worked on, maybe a couple times a year, maybe not for you.
I think what was warping my head is like they nailed the luxury features of this vehicle.
100%.
But the more basic, to me, convenience features, they neglected or failed to execute on. And I think that's like what was really irking me and was making me scratch my head a little bit.
They seem like base hits when they've done everything else so well.
Exactly. It's like you've nailed so many hard aspects of this vehicle that most manufacturers strive to obtain.
Yeah.
You got it here. All you guys need to do is some of the more, to me, simple and basic things. Yeah. And then you have a really, really good car that also has a good value proposition, that you get the pedigree and the prestigiousness and that you wouldn't have.
Yeah,
today.
No, it's truly amazing. Like some of the engineering is mind blowing. Like how like sharp and dynamic and quick this can feel because it's the Sport, but it also then I know can go and like drive across Africa tomorrow, probably with different wheels and tires. But like you get
probably
that
not
point.
the carbon.
Yes, probably not the carbon blades.
And maybe a backup car.
Like sure, but like it has that pedigree built into it, and I know that it has that while it's still being sporty and dynamic because it's the Range Rover Sport.
Yeah.
So then to see them do so well there and have that so well engineered, and then just kind of fumble the UX here and the lane keep is like, guys, if you just did these couple little things better, you would have like such a good like unquestionably good car.
Yes.
Because I've really, really enjoyed my week with this car. Like I've really enjoyed it, genuinely. It's just some of the little things that you're gonna have to make excuses for if you go and lease this thing.
Or buy it.
At least.
Okay.
But yes, so I don't know. Those are some of the thoughts that I've been wrestling with. Leave it down in the comments what some of your thoughts are. Do you have anything else?
No. Yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to hear what some of the viewers think in terms of the things that we've touched on. Let us know what you think. Yeah. And appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you to Land Rover for letting us have a go, and we'll see you in the next one.